The online purchase invoices are not acceptable. Sasa higher patale, to be fair.
Sure.
They come as the rejections.
Sure.
Every time we have the influx of rejections. That's on SAS the online purchase. That is why Lorena Harry Kelly say Basotho batho the online. It's easy thing ke bophelo bo woman who reka online, and but when it comes to taba tsa makgetho bo go hotel, it's so.
Have you ever been frustrated whenever crossing the border, particularly during the peak season? With Easter fast approaching and any other peak season, in today's conversation, we are talking everything how to prepare for custom duties and excise. In today's episode, proudly sponsored by Revenue Services Lesotho, I have a guest in studio who's going to tell us the do's, the don'ts when it comes to crossing the border so that we're efficient with our time, but also efficient in terms of the processes. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tukiso TK Tebe, your trusted voice on personal finance and financial well-being. And of course, this show is available on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. And the name of the show is My Money Adventures, because let's be honest, money is an adventure. What we encourage, however, is for us to enjoy that ride. So without wasting any more time, let me get straight into the episode and chat to my guest today. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning there. How are you?
Good morning, Tata. I'm good. How are you?
You're feeling good. You're feeling relaxed.
More than good.
How are you arriving today? The psychologist said, how are you arriving? Particularly, how are you arriving today? So how are you feeling? How are you arriving to this podcast episode?
I'm feeling very good and proud to be here, especially being with you. You're such a
trailblazer.
Hey.
If I must say so myself.
Yeah, you said it all, can it?
All right, Kelly. So for people who don't know you, let's start at the introduction. Within Revenue Services Lesotho, what do you do?
My name is Machas Pamote. I work for the Revenue Services Lesotho as a senior customs inspector based at Masoro Prish.
If your bank account could speak currently, hi
girl, we are still alive.
You're still alive.
Yeah.
And for as long as you are alive, there's hope.
There's hope.
Because it can multiply all of that.
Multiply.
All right. So as a customs person, how do you go as senior customs inspector? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
As a senior customs inspector, my duties go the daily operations such as should traffic thing, the paintings are duly meant. Go painting and effective for that matter. Effective and ready to serve.
Ready to serve. So part of that responsibility so I feel like it's what's that process? Motho a bang effective or by effective ho etsala eng?
Ho bona hore wena o fihla borokgo mo di tlhoko tsohle tse hlokahalang ditokomane tsohle phese because o na go sebetsa le batho ba kenang ba tswang ho reka haholo. Shall the traveler fela la ba fihla ka rona ha Lesotho, we serve them. So a particular person a painting yo o tlameha a etse bonnete ba hore ditokomane tsohle tse hlokahalang ha o tswa raka wa di checka o na le tsona and o mo fa tsona.
Tokomane tseo mohlala wa tsona ke eng? So ke tswa Bloemfontein as an example, ke tswa reka diphahlo, ke tswa reka laptop, ke tswa reka cell phone e ntjha. Maybe let's start about the clearance process or in clearance process. Lore na ha ke fihla to this customs official na hore a be effective na process yona ke eng, lore na what do I need to do ke le motho a fihlang at the border post?
TK. As customs, our main responsibility is the clearance of goods through the efficient supervision of the custom procedures and processes, just aimed to enhance the trade facilitation and social protection. So, hari emi money to painting official otsarek. Do you have anything to declare? If Okara no, go tswela pele re a ntate ga kopa ho ikgodisa and please don't be offended.
Yes.
Re beua mo go tshepetse ho etsa mosebetsi ke mane mo go tla re sheba koloi ya hao ka pha ba tsamaya ka thutonyana e matsong e felletseng re fuwe tokelo ya hore we unpack whatever it's in your luggage ga sheba
e lore declaration eno ke bohlokwa
haholo
and failing to declare
ga itholla tsona ka borona lots of penalties
yo I want to make an example nebekele moshosho 1 international airport ke tsamaya ke out of the country so ke tsamaya ka laptop ena and one of the documents all to ke complete in a customs declaration. So kana kweno before ke ithuta ka taba tseno and I was like, why am I signing paperwork and kana ka ile bala ntwe itse how important is it for Basotho who are leaving the country who declare to your point here declaration similarly ba fihlang ka tokomane tseno ba declare
ke tsetsa mohlala hape upon what you have just said ke bone batho ba re phelang le bona ka rona ha ka mo o tla ba tswa game ke pa tshwarela to mention that shop even khozera tsang ho reka o sana le lebaka hang blom my aunt wa kula ho teke mathele clinic okay fine o tshela fela borogong a sa etsang a sa botsa with the package ka buting ha declare ho hang ha re notify gore I have these items ka buting ka mona so how so khutla tswa bana anti spetlele gona house na bopaki bo hlo go tswa ka Lesotho mo bopaki bo tla re fang bona ke stock tankana sana se tla bengetse go game Lesotho so if selesio go tlo ngotso ga ka kae in the South African side and failure to produce that document ke tla ke bua ka yona go tlo lefisa di tepeno ka kolong ka ofela o ntse e rekile ka rona
because you have failed to evidence firstly how I declare secondly how ona evidence ka supporting documentation a bontsha gore
declaration e no hantle bona ke go tlo tlisa form e bontshang gore it's a temporary export so o tle le yona hape yona tokamane le no ba le ka sas ntse ba le hloka so o tlo khutla le yona to show gore a ihle tepainana ke tsula ka go yona ka hona ka mona and I'm here back ka yona hape that
hangata re tshela ka borogong ke opela there was a lot of commotion whether it's tshela Maseo Bridge Botabote Maputswe Vepenare and so on and so forth e le hore tax o tlokotla le setlankana but we don't really know na setlankana sena na ke eng right so ke tlabe ke fuwa receipt mo ke tswang teng so ha re bua ka tax clearance kapa tax invoice what is a tax invoice le hore na di feature tsa teng ke di feng
okay ndat ke lebo ke tlo kokobela ho la ke bua ka ena TK
okay
ya ka South Africa re lo ga ka thepa so motho o ikgathela ma lo ga ka teng le gona tswa gona lo ga ka eng but in codes ha re beng aware with the kinds of suppliers tsa re ka mo tsona ba bang re ithekela ka ntle ka mane fela sa wa due diphahlo so reka o tlatsa mokotla o ya le dibohong ba bang professional ba ikenela ka di shopong tse registered with VAT South African registered vendors ke tsone tse re reng borogo mona ha o fihla o ke ba batlo ba le di issue
okay
but ha o reka ka ntle ka mola motho a sa register a ke geng a tobetsa le ha se ka ba tokomane fela that is we are liable lo patalla le khatho thepa yeno jwa but I should also explain na what is a tax invoice a tax invoice ga ke tokomane yo morekisi wa hao being a vendor in the South African side atla o issuela yona etla ba detailed enough to show descriptions tsa thepa o tsang ho ireka hona description mo ho hlokala hore o hlakise go tswa ka le mati o tswa ka bet ho ska ngola BDX 111 DX kapo 123 so it should be clear description ha rona o tswa ka eng secondly that document should have the word tax invoice or a VAT invoice or invoice in a prominent space. This is really a tax invoice. One other feature, it should have a VAT registration number. Yeah, that supplier. It's a number with 10 digits starting with the number 4. If it has 9 digits, that is essentially it's a nullified the quality is an original tax invoice.
So 10 digits that starts with
the number 4.
So I can fitla pele ham fast lankana fela ka se ke sheba ke re re ke check
1 2 3 over the count.
Number 1, kshebe VAT, kshebe nomoro di 10. And the first number must be 4. Okay.
Start with the number 4.
I like that.
And there should be 10. That invoice also should have the date.
Okay. Kitswakadi to April. Maybe a time as well.
No, not necessarily. There is it is like our tax invoice should be within 90 days from the date of purchase. So go to sheba go rekile di 2 tsa February. So the 2 tsa February ho ya kwa go to sheba gona ke kgwedi tsa kae. Is it 3 months, within 3 months? Gona le ditletsa mohlala fela ka batho ba tlang ba sekeng. Hangata batho ba re phela le bona malapeng mole ba reka dintho tsa ba beya kere tsena tsa saboleng ba reka bo sesepa ba reka e be di invoice tsa ntse ba di etsa ba di be understanding yona sa le tong hore bo go khondeng go hloka invoice, but the challenging part ke date.
That's 3 months.
That's 90 days.
Okay. So basically, how I get to ka April. I've got 3 months. The invoice must be 3 months valid prior to So instead of December ka November Black Friday, ka December discount ka February, March, April.
Ase bothata tsa ntate ke ho reka ka nako tso di sele di ngata ka nako tsa ntse di festive, but ensure hore bonyane ba kampa ba neletsa o go ele thepe ya ka hae go avoid taba no tlo re a tsa thepe ke rekile ka lerato ebile ba bang go tlo bone melao le melawana ha ifihla yo gama yo betsa je fela o ntse etsa ntho o entse ntho na paetseng a ba tshwara tsa mmehle ke itikile ke tlile le setlankana se ebe ha sheba go jole ke ya December jolo o fihla ka April ha re bala kgweditse
batho mdim
ke man mo tlo tlama go patela VAT.
Yo ke nane potso ene ke tlo botsa ya gona ha se ke fitla bogogong gona ke tla ka eng ke nane se re ya ga bill I get, but ha re bua ka these ke tla re bua ka yona tax ntho ha se ke na le setlankana senana so se ke tla mo patala, what's that process like, and hang out of man gore ha ke na tšhelete ya o patala because you could se ke patetse ka money.
It's always the case, but you go back to the feature tax invoice. So it should also have the unique invoice number. That is invoice number yak should be different from the next person. Invoice number 10
sure,
it should be different, unique.
So how did you pick up because na excited? It's more like a tax invoice.
The word tax
invoice couple invoice, but preferably tax invoice. VAT invoice. If you can the details are how can a VAT number that starts with the number 4. Digits 10
digits.
Then number 3 is date is cover older than 3 months. I can feel up go home. I get number 4. It's invoice number a unique. Aha. Sure.
So how rekile ka thepa 5,000 and above ga tla re be le di address tsa hao tsa mo consumption a thepa tlo etsa la teng.
Okay.
E le gore tla be le Lesotho. E le gore invoice na hao ha isena feature yeo ya di address e sentse e etsa ba e khatha validity yona kaofela. That is ntho tsa tsohle tse ke di lista mo ha engwe ya tsona e le sio e for size invoice eno
since le mathata
ha re gile 5,000 and above, ensure that your tax invoice has your physical addresses e be bontsha gore Lesotho marshals phamotse go betsana Lesotho ka ba ka ba fela marshals phamotse Lesotho. That is enough.
Okay, so ha ke le shopong out of the country, how about if invoice on a patal, I need to specify those things ho bona. Okay, invoice on a Lesotho ka yona ke kopa le kenya details tsa ka system ya lona because I think we can ka shopong ebe we just take the invoice what's a man. Okay, all right.
So the sessions are ka ntsena di go thusa gore batho ba nne ba bele a very clear light gona go tlo hlokahalang ha ba kena. So ha ile less than 5,000 then ntse ka ba le di address tsa supplier tsena tsa hala di sio tsentse le khothaletso gore di ka ba teng because how sheba total class small ha ka like ya kwala o sa bona gore yentse 5,000 a ke tshela ka tsa 4,099 and into 5,000 you can come across is not the address tsena. One other feature ko gore e be le the VAT rate which is 15% at the moment. But 2017 konanele 14% rate.
Okay.
Let's say but we believe about to both like travelers. So that's why 15%. However, it's an indicator on the invoice 15% rate DOS is the amount more should be equivalent to the 15% when calculated. And that.
I can score up on that. And I think it's gonna be interesting again how the VAT the chincha. I think South Africa chincha the is it the ones makeup or the ones April example, but I'll plug it, but it'll change us. It's gonna be quite interesting.
Okay.
But currently get like 15%. Maybe it's
in rates amount equivalent to how you calculate. 15% on the amount,
Sure.
And it should be an original tax invoice. Not scanned, not the copy. Highly scanned, ke bone batho ba ba rekang online. A ke re ba reka online. Ebe the invoice ba sa ba tlo etsetsa kae ka di depot ba lo collectang thepa tsa bona. Ebe se a thotswa thepeng ya bona. Ha ba fihla borogong, whatever you bought online, o tlo patala lekgatho le no invoice eno.
Sure. So ha ba kile take a lot ke rekile ntwenana. Ha ke fihla ka borogong ha sena di feature tso kaofela
wa patala.
Ke a patala.
And how do you say it's a valid tax invoice? Ki ena le nna ke tswa mono ke tswa e bona. Re na le mokgwa o re leng trained ho sheba this is a valid tax invoice as a copy as a scan. And I sheba ha ile re sheba ka le ka lotsotla ko no this one ke.
So harile so for example I take a lot. I get an original text invoice, but it's sent via email. Does that consider as original?
It's invalid. Once they scan it or send it via email and you're going to print it again, not acceptable.
Sure.
Not acceptable. That's not our requirements. That is the South African Revenue Services requirements. The SARS requirements.
So really in cases like that, just out of interest, what do consumers do batlang Lesotho? Take a lot, on an online platform. I get an email of the invoice, then I have to print it.
And produce it at the border.
Produce it at the border. It got us 5,000, 5,000. What's the process? Highly drawn.
Unso tla le thepa e jwalo e leng tax invoice. Ha o fitla ka mane ka South Africa, every tax invoice o nang le yona, ha o keta o tempisa passport ya hao, o ya ka customs ka SARS ba tempisa such invoice. But rona validity ya yona, bona ba tempa fela.
Okay.
Ba tempa fela. Rona to say is valid or not, o tla tla we sheba to from the customs officials at our border posts. Ke rona ba tla ba jwetsa this is acceptable or not. But the online purchase invoices are not acceptable. Sasa hire patale, to be fair.
Sure.
They come as the rejections every time. We have the influx of rejections. That's on SAS kataba the online purchase. That is why lorona reng ha re ikeletse Basotho ba tseba go taba tsa di online. It's easy thing ke bophelo bo woman who reka online and but when it comes to taba tsa makgetho borogong hotel, it's so.
I think what you just said now brings a very interesting question. Later on, why is it important for us how you do what is right? How does that benefit and how does it benefit our country?
How to regard South African DK TK? How about to declare everything you have? Because Krenka the invoice like how I get 250 of my lile boplomo or let me take it say some tiny things say 250. Please be fair, how temper invoice so at the South African site I'll get up at temper passport. About la leona mana. Le khatolo le go tlofumana invoice nya ha mo ke lona le ntse le thusa nahena Lesotho hore ba be di tsela metlakase dikolo le bana ba bang bo batswadi ba bona o sena mo bankang teng. It's through makgetho ana ntseng ga collect e bang bophelo bo ba betere ke mane mo a ka sale e reng it's working hard to improve the livelihood ya the nation, Basotho nation. And that.
So how we papanye file, like how we papanye file, it's like ha. Ibile ha ba di customer official di fitla tla ba ke reka letho, ke reka letho.
So ntho le tse re di etsang tsona.
Ha reka letho.
Ebile le bele kwa di festive. Ba bona se ke tla ke hello mme, na ke kopa botsa na o rekileng. But ke service pointing o go tse festive. Empa se bile re tlwaetse ka nnete. Ga ikokobetsa ebe finally o tla be o bule festive ga o re bu. And that.
Sure. I think in happen ra tlo ba ka yona ke ya dinto ahead of the Easter since re bula ka yona hanyane fela but ke ya paseking hona tjena and we have a lot of people batlang high. What can they do better? Ile hore ha ba fitla ka bogogong ba ska ba fumana di surprises se re bile ka tsona. Boholo ba bona se re boholo ba tsona se re di discusses but just before we are to the ad break re go na what are those things now that we are preparing ho ya high o plan leto la how fitla pelo tloa mo tloang teng o botse ba re kentse 1 2 3 4 5 so that I don't have issues at the border.
Ke taba ya bohlokwa ho le ntate. Basotho ba rona ba sebetsang ka kwa ba sebetsa bathong ba ba ratang haholo. Ha ba tloa mo ba ba fa di gift first off o fele dress o fe kadak as a gift. Manga hai hantsa mo prepare di gift tse ana mo kipela di receipt. Ha ba ha fihla ka borogong ka mo ha ona gift e fetang borogong. You pay for that gift because I na tokomane bontshang wa ke gift.
Sure.
The gift di a patala. Ha tsana le bontata ba di mining ba tlotla ba fuwe matras. Ile mbona jo bo di phuza mantle ka di 20 liters. We value that. Ebe go patala makgetho on that.
Oh. So ha se kitlele tsona ke sna stlankana sena ka bopaki bonana ha le value what's the valuation process ka poki ha ke condition hore nkana ka tlamo go patala ke VAT ka how is that calculation calculated?
Re interview our clients ntate 20 liters o setse mabox ba ka ya di future ka mo. So in the market re tla be re tsena future fill box la teng kremetse kana ke bokae. So go tlo counta jwalo ha ba ke mabox ba 5 la time is the rate of 15% renke 50% ya quantity ya tepo inkile. Ayanat. Failure to do that we detain tepa yenu e sala borogong until o gona ho ipatalla kapo o re fa a valid tax invoice. Rena le ditoro tsa hantle ho le tsebela ka tepa ya Basotho.
And the insured the security
ha bohloko fela.
All right. I want us to take a quick break, and after this break, I'll just everything customs duties. What do you have to do so that you cross seamlessly and without any hassles? This episode was proudly brought to you by Revenue Services Lesotho, Regina Kawena. And part of the conversation that we need to start having why is it important for us to pay taxes and what the benefits are for us as a nation? Infrastructure, primary school education, tertiary education, healthcare, and pensions, one of my favorites. We will be back after this short break. Stay tuned and do not go anywhere because after the break, we'll talk about so many other interesting things as it pertains to crossing the border. We will be back shortly. Welcome back to the second half of episode 3 in collaboration with Revenue Services Lesotho. In this episode, we are talking customs duties and what you need to do when crossing the border at any port of entry across the country of Lesotho. And just before the break, I was actually shocked to say if you're buying things online from a Revenue Services Lesotho perspective, you may be liable to pay taxes. So it's very important for us to educate ourselves on what is a valid tax clearance. And talking about valid anything, one of the key things that we're going to elaborate on is registrable goods. Manolo na ha re bua ka registrable goods re bua ka eng for motho a sa tsebeng.
Okay, that re na le mefuta ya thepa e mengata e tshelang borokgong. The individual ke qala mono hore tsona ha di feta borokgong, they are not obliged to kena di-system tsa rona through the agents. So ba ka e fetela ka thepa yohle. Ntle le ena e re reng ke di-registrable goods.
Okay.
Makoloi, di-tracker. That is thepa ena e tjena e re hlokang hore ha o keta ho e reka o lo e register. That's where the registrable goods word comes from. Wa e reka, but ha o fihla hae before you sebedisa yo tlama hore o lo etsa bang o lo e register mane o tla di certificate. So as an individual ha wa tlameha hore o ka ya di-agent ngwa declare thepa except ha o tswa ka mofuta ono wa thepa.
Okay.
Kona o tlamang hore jwang kapa jwang o kena di-system tsa rona through the agents di declare le thepa e jwalo. Yo yona ke tlo etsa haholo emphasis tabeng ya dikoloi tse tsona di-tracker. Ha o fihla ka the valid tax invoice e le ke la ka bua ka yona with clear features le yona e le original le ko jwetsa gore men tate o se original tax invoice inclusive of VAT. O tsebe hore o ntso tlo patala VAT yeno e invoice mono. But re e tla be le double taxation. Ha o fihla borokgong go clearela koloi ya hao by inspector o tla bo so patetsa ke re hape ebe wa tshela o ya kae registration nyana dikoloi man mo di register wa with the same package. How get to register, you come back to us ka mona ka marokgong o tlo etsetswang memo ya refund ya tšhelete yohle ye o e patetseng ya koloi eno o e patetseng ha be di le kgetho leno. So we only refund on the basis how meet the criteria tsa a valid tax invoice. And the refund is it's like 14 days, 14 working days. And that
if there's one thing I've learned at Tax Authority, the proof is in the pudding. Okay, all right.
So happen ke tax invoice ya how should o rekile thepa feta 10,000 o tlamele o tle le bopaki ba patala, the proof of payment made to the supplier.
Sure.
So it can be the cash receipt, how so you say cash, kapa EFT, how like the EFT transfers, kapa the PO slip, how la swipe. Even that tax invoice itself is a proof of payment to run our fish.
Okay.
Because highly less than 10,000, that is, you are not going to produce these other types of POPs. Secondly, stealing a.
Sure. Yo. I think that has been at the back of my mind. In fact, before I can as an example personal because it's also a consultation. So I wanted to buy a mobile freezer. And I later learned how type of vibe. So basically if I was to buy that thing, follow process clear register at the site back to the border and what have you not.
Whatever goods o tsang ho reka ha fela e attract hore kapo e tlama hore at the end of the day e lo register e be le certificate o patala le kgathulo le invoicing hape ha o fihla borokgong before you cross.
Okay.
And how fihla ka documents tsohle tso tshetseng ka tsona borokgong plus certificate sana sa class thola how to register re tlo di checka hape with those certificates tse tswang South Africa tse bang o tla di thotse tsa thepa eno ke tlo tsa mahlala wa koloi di subco di registration certificates tsa the motor vehicles tse tsona tse hlokahalang. So attachment eno ka ofela with the copy of receipt o la patala ka yona mole ha o fihla o patala VAT hape re tlo di attach ka ofela package eno e khutela ka SARS to claim that VAT on behalf of our country.
Behalf of the country.
Yona e be go tlo fa ena inline temon ena ye nngwe o ipatetseng hape ho rona ha o fihla ke yona go refundang yona but yana ya pele ko ona go lo claim ka mane.
So I think the message I'm also getting from Ntoso Dibwako hore Lesotho, we can't take those taxes for granted because they benefit and ho hanya process kapa to be upset about the process, but it's actually to our benefit.
Very true that.
Sure. Okay. So ha re kgutlele ha re tjhentjhe ho before re movela ho di trader re bue potso ena ya ho qetela ya hore na in cases where motho a sa patetse tax ka mane o touchile ha yona ho ya ntho itseng motho sa patetse VAT that side ebe o tshwere a valid tax clearance certificate kapa tax invoice tax invoice e botla mo patala hape. What are those, how we say in that case?
Ke yone ene ya di registrable goods fela ga reng ha fela e ntse napa ya tsejwalo o tlo patala but re o ntse tshwere tax invoice ke bona o tla botse ba o tshwere tax invoice but o makala ha o fihla customs se ma go gomona ho o patala hape. Is then that o tla hopola di feature tsa ne gore ile go ka nna ba ha ena eng e ka nna ba ke copy ke scan ke di scenario tse jwalo tsa tla fumana gore o patala le kgetho hape.
Okay,
and re tlo fa di option, we have options. It's either o sia tip ho lokisa invoice ntse re shebile that issue ya 90 days ebe neng ha ba o sa kgone ho patala hang o detain it ke la ka e hlalosa earlier ga o tlatsisa form le wena o itlame mona re hlile o sile thepa le gona re accept re hlile thepa e jwalo e setse matsong a rona ka poloko yohle. That's the options.
Okay. So how do you trader? Firstly, what documents do traders have to prepare so that they avoid delays? And firstly, before we back at the trader, for people who may not understand when a trader how can I definition of according to the revenue services so to na trader then we can get into na bona ba fihla na ba etsa morokgo so that they're efficient ka process eo.
Re na le bahwebi ka rona ha ka mona ke bona di trader ba registerileng le RSL ba bantse ba so register ha fela o le mohwebi o rekisa thepa e tswang go reka South Africa mane o ya go classify o le a trader. Re na le ba bang ba sa registerang la RSL but ke butsi Marshall's Paja Swap ka mane and ha ka le general dealer fela ka ho rona ka customs o trader o mohwebi so you ama hore jwang kapa jwang o ye di agenting o lo ditlara thepa jwalo into our system e bitswa as a CUDA system di agent ke tsantse tla o thusa o ditlara thepa jwalo so how so o ditlerile thepa e jwalo o tla borogong with those documents the agent tla o fa tsona ebe jwale re tla re sheba thepa ha fihla borogong mona rona o hloka ho inspector kapa thepa e jwalo e hloka hore e sale borogong ka baka mabaka a mang seng ke a boletse ba tretere lello hore diphetho tse teng ko hore haeba TK financial wellness saibe ke bitsa hantle TKO
yes.
e rumme boitumelo ho lata thepa South Africa e le driver TK etsa authorization letter e bontshang hore o mo rumme South Africa ho lo mo rekela thepa on behalf of company ya TKO.
Yes.
Ebe site le passport number ya hae mono le ngolong le jwalo. And boitumela ha khutla a tswa ka thepa. Tlhoko isa le hore re tlo fota passport ena ya hae ka mona ka sefahlong sa hae le ka mane ka mo ditempe a bontshitseng departure le entry and that is a requirement and ha di lisiyo traka ya ema borogong ho fihlela tokomane jole e ba teng should TKO e engage di courier TKO tla re e o faraisitse courier itseng hore molatela thepa courier ke re lona ke company itseng e na le di employees tsa teng le yona e etsa lengolo le hore ke le courier itseng ke ntshitse Thabiso ho lata thepa ya TK ka South Africa that is the authorization letter is a go ba pedi boemong bono. So another document o hlokalang ke trader's license kapa tax clearance tse valid in case of a company re hloka company extract e bontshang ditaba tsa ona ke bofeng and that ke di attachment tse seng hlokahala inclusive of the original tax invoice.
I always hear that tax clearance. So get for that tax clearance, tax invoice, valid tax invoice. All right. That's on a lot of people. The delay into how depots of entry across the country so that we move into the country. How important is service or revenue services Lesotho? in particular re bua ka ntho ya kapa how is Revenue Services Lesotho going about improving and issuing kapa offering rather good customer service?
Ke taba ya bohlokwa ena hape hantle mona mo re deployeng teng re la ga deploy ho bona re tshepetse hore tla fana ka service ya hantle to the betterment of this nation kapa the country. Re deploy mo no re etsa mosebetsi motho wa tswana o tlamela ho etsang ho tloha hoseng ho fihlela shift ya hae fela. So e mong le mong o liable hore a bone hore every client I thusa e tswa ka mo no e kgotsofetse. O interview client o mo butsisa hantle rona o kwisa ntho tlo etsa hantle ne di agent tsa rona di na le information e tshwanang le ya rona sort of ina le yona go lo ba ke bona ba etsang jwang pre clearance or tepa e clear wa pele motho a santsana le kae di le tepa e so fihle ho yena mona o mo investetsa o mo email invoice fela e le copy le jwale ena o tla ka tracker le tepa le original ka system teng ha rena bothata le di copy agent ntse a thasha di copy tsena information yo hlantsa e thola from the importer ele client e tla be se itse sa tepa ka rona ha Lesotho. So re leka hore re nolofatsa mosebetsi ka hore motho a fitla bo e ska be e le hona a tlo etsang all the clearance processes. That is why re reng how get our reka hang the clearing agent of your choice ha go khethele
of your choice
ke ena o tla mo submitela document tseno out clearele tepa ya hao and the assessment notice tepa ngwe le ngwe ya ga if e gafang e tla issuela assessment notice ebe monga tepa wa ipatala ka nako o ntsa ta ka traka kae tseleng agent yone sentse etsa bana etsa dipampiri ha ke ta ho patala payment hang document e be bitswang proceed to board e tla be etso that is by the time traka e fihla driver ga fuwa ditokomane tsena ka ofela di manifest le di proceed to board o ya kae borokgo upon arrival at the border wa itlaleya ho di custom officials I'm here ebe bona ba tla kena system tsa bona ba sheba gona should we inspect this one kapo is ready for release then that certain consignment exit the customs area with the exit note.
Sure. It's a very nice tag under your thingy is
this one.
Yes. So I think I've been there before. More a customs official like Misa Kabua guys. I'm so sure it's a hal. Maybe working ke smartphone yaka my iPhone 16. Scanner barcode. Tell us a bit about what the Rate My Service is, Lorena. Why it's important for Revenue Services Lesotho.
We have these tags across all border posts. And I choose Revenue Services Lesotho. We gauge o sheba gona ke nete re teng go deploy tera sebetsa but ba re sebeletsa how do they see us go ntona ya go thusa fala hore e le thusa our areas of improvement go lo improve kae because anje ka tlo go qobella hore you served me well o be fair enough ha bana re hloka ho itlhatlhoba re se bana ntse re sebetsa jwang that is only the purpose for this one and motho mo le mong o tlameha a bo go khomone be we hakile ona le yona and that you use your phone unfortunately the data how
so it's not data it's not data free. I know what's the word I'm looking for. Zero rated or something like that. So because it's a data
right. But it's so helpful can it luena ho sane ha bonong kwatetse today ho sane ha o khutla o tlo bona improvement ha go because ntho tsa tlhotsa di ngolang ka mo ha ke ta ho upload form le tlatsa they are going to be reviewed even re ba le di briefing sessions from our tags Rate My Service tags re bone di concern tsa tsena guys let us improve money so ho sana ha o fitla o tlo declare tepa umpana ke le a different someone au savang we smile ka tsela e professional ho fitla o exita borog
as we close this episode oreng ho Basotho particularly ho Basotho batlang high but also the batsamaya because I've had a case where it's a medical laptop declare and so on and so forth. It's like a whole issue. So what are we saying to but this particular episode on Spotify on Apple Podcasts or now what are the key things they need to remember particularly ahead of the Easter season but le nako nngwe ha fela o tsela borog
And all have been said. Go ha ona ntho e fapaneng. Ha batle ha e paseke. Fela batle ba ntse ba hopotse ditaba tsa hore ka nnete ra kopa tswetswetswe. Ha re se keng ra tla le di-gift borokgong ebe re tlo hana ho di patalla ba sa nka ditokomane tsa teng. Haeba o sotla hae o sotla la ruri ba bang a kere mesebetsi ya fela age bokudi thepa ya hao yohle e ka hara box truck haebe le affidavit re bontsha gore thepa ena really ha e ntjha tshele rona re tlo ikgotsofatsa a se ka kwa ka ra mo offend re tlo ikgotsofatsa ho sheba o me TV e ka nnete e ntsana le dipampiri e ntjha le stove se sena le stain fela se so khumwe ke sa gale gore ke ntonyana tse ntse re tlo di sheba but re prepare la haholo ka nnete hore re tlo thusa movement hore o be o kekeng wa etsa dile mabaka a batho go nna le batho team ya rona it's ready ka nnete to serve batho bohle ba fetang matibohong mono ka nnete. And the last thing gore ho bohlokwa ho declare thepa yohle re qobe taba ya di-concealments tsa dithepa tse le fetang marokgong ka tsona because once re iponela re iphumanela tsona di-concealment tseo ka nnete ha o tlo ba monate as in ha re tlo ntsha dithunya ha re tlo lwana ha re tlo etsang but di-penalty ke tsona tse tlatla di ntsha borokgong mono o sa rate o tlo tsofa ho ya South Africa hape o lo reka ka go ka phela local mona o dilo ntso ka fela ka nnete ke yona ntsheng hobane mono mo re teng ka nnete re beetse fela ho collecta makgetho o tlo ntlafatsa naha Lesotho le Basotho ke sona fela sepheo sa rona.
So ha re tlweleng ho shaba customs ele the enemy, it's actually to the benefit and embetterment of Lesotho. Jwale ka RSL le petjo la bona ke re tjena ka wena. So do your part, let me do my part, let's comply, but also let's do what we have to do. And one of those things includes dropping your questions in the comment section below to share your experiences, to share your comments, to share your questions around what you need to do ahead of the Easter season, but any other time when crossing the border across any port of entry in Lesotho. This episode was proudly brought to you by Revenue Services Lesotho in partnership with TKO Financial Wellness through the Money Adventures podcast, because we want you to be tech savvy. And imagine how if you also patetse VAT ka mane and you don't have the right tax invoice, what that does to your finances. Unnecessarily. So get the valid tax invoice so that you are crossing the border seamlessly. Not only are you saving on money, you're also saving on time. I always say time is money. So make sure that you have all the requirements so that you can cross the border with ease. And now your smartphone, it doesn't have to be an iPhone 16. Smartphone and rate their service so that we give them feedback, because if there's one thing Revenue Services Lesotho is intentional about, is improving the customer service and digitizing as much as they possibly can. So give them feedback, because we always say feedback is the breakfast of champions. So have a feedback. Remember to like, comment, and share this episode with every other person who may benefit from it. And this is episode 3 of 5. So stay tuned for episode 4, where we're going to discuss customs, where we're going to discuss company income tax. And then there's also an episode 5 where we'll be sharing valuable insights about tax planning and tax compliance. Until the next video, listen to this podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And a big shout out to my team, Matsuso Photography behind the camera, Biza Street Inc., and the team at TKO Financial Wellness, and also Revenue Services Lesotho for investing and sponsoring this episode. Until the next one, remember that money is an adventure. Let's enjoy the ride. Signing out. Cheers. See you in episode 4. Bye.